All right, it's your buddy, it's your pal, Mike Messier. Today I saw on good old-fashioned Twitter a tweet from Hulk Hogan Hulk Hogan himself, yes, I happened to see his tweet, and he sent a little video message to the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and I guess at this point these guys are pretty friendly now. They're both, in their mid-60s about, or if not, close to 70, and God bless both of them. Neither guy is perfect, but I like both of those guys, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, and obviously Hogan's said a lot of stupid things in the last few years and been in trouble with the thought police and had his lawsuits and everything. But basically what I'm getting at is Hogan put out some tweet to Ric Flair about some video from like 1991 or 92. There's a promo from WWF that Hogan was kind of cutting on Flair for some house show at Madison Square Garden, maybe in November of the 1991, I think. And I just tweeted both of them, Flair and Hogan. Not that they care, maybe they do. I said, hey, because you guys couldn't work out a finish, we had that double main event at WrestleMania 8 instead of Hogan versus Flair at WrestleMania 8. So I was, I kind of pointed out to both Hogan and Flair, you guys couldn't come up with a decent finish, and we, the wrestling public, were robbed of a great match that we all should have enjoyed, okay? So now I'm going to discuss the Ric Flair Hulk Hogan rivalry. Now for those that lived through this stuff, it'll be a trip down memory lane. For those that didn't, you'll kind of learn something, hopefully. So let's start. I'm not going to go through the whole history, onyx of these guys, but basically to say these were our two top guys. You had Flair, the top NWA guy, coming over in 1991 to WWF. Hogan in the middle of his third title reign, having just beaten Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. Hogan, by my memory, wasn't really involved in any type of big storyline around August of 91 when Flair was able to finally come over. He was still doing rematches at the house show tours with Sergeant Slaughter. They were still doing a lot of rematches. They were still doing SummerSlam 91 was the match made in hell. Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. We all know about that match where Warrior held up Vince for money, blah, blah, blah. And Flair was being mentioned on that pay-per-view by Bobby Heenan, by my memory. So finally, mid to late September, I'm guessing off the top of my head by my wrestling memory, September 21st, 1991, LA Sports Arena was Flair's first match in WWF. That's just me going by memory. I don't know if that's the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it was LA Sports Arena. And I remember it was two house shows kind of back to back on a weekend. Flair comes in, they put him right in the mix at house show main events against Hogan for the title. And they even do what I'll call a reverse Dusty finish, meaning that the heel cheats to win the title. They give Ric Flair the title, and then of course they say that Hogan, was the victim of cheating or Bobby Heenan's interference or some such thing. Give the belt right back to Hulk. So those matches are pretty strong, but apparently, and look, I wasn't there, I don't work for the company, but apparently these matches were not the big blockbuster sellouts that they expected or that they hoped. They hadn't, as far as I know, even really put Flair on TV. I don't know if his Neidhart match, or his Jim Powers match, talking about Flair's matches, his wins and preliminary matches were even on TV yet when they started throwing him in these main events. So you can say it either way. It's almost like they set up Flair to fail because they didn't give him any, they just said, oh, you're the big guy. You're the big guy from NWA. We'll just throw you in the main event. Okay. So it's kind of a mixed thing with that. And I guess the point is, at that time, you literally were in those days of just 4, maybe 5 pay-per-views a year. In fact, I was, on the network recently looking at their pay-per-view schedules back then in the 90s. And I think 91, 92 were still, years that you only had 4 pay-per-views. So that being said, the Survivor Series was coming up, and you could have done a couple of things. And what they did was they got Flair a victory, like a very screw job, 5 guys get disqualified at once type of thing. So Ric Flair technically got a Survivor Series victory, a sole survivor in his match. He was kind of in that second tier match, and Flair got the victory. I think over Piper's team. And in the main event, as we all know, The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan. Undertaker's 1-year anniversary in the WWF, and he wins the championship with interference from Ric Flair, using the chair, the big tombstone pile driver on the chair from Undertaker. Then, of course, the emergency pay-per-view, which was just hilarious that term had to be, the emergency pay-per-view. Taker versus Hogan, Hell in a Cell, I'm sorry, I just skipped way ahead, but Tuesday in Texas, not Hell in a Cell, for crying out loud. So, all that stuff happened. Flair was right in the mix. But what happened, in my opinion, is if Flair is helping another guy, which he did, Undertaker, a virtual rookie in WWF years, win the championship from Hogan, Flair is kind of discounting, his character is discounting, the WWF is discounting Hogan's worth or Hogan's sense of power or his championship reign. I mean, they're ending it. So now you've got a shtick where the Hogan-Flair match is already tainted, because back then, matches, victories, and losses did matter more. And now Hogan's just been beat. So now you got to have a Flair versus Hogan match, but then to even get there, they had to do the whole Royal Rumble routine, which was actually a great match. If anything we got out of Ric Flair in WWF in his 1992-93 reign, it was, I should say 91 to 93 tenure, it was the 92 Rumble. Awesome match. I think Ric Flair's finest hour, up there with the Steamboat Clash of Champions 6 and the Harley Race Starrcade 83. So basically Flair wins 92 Rumble. Awesome match. If you haven't seen that match, you got to watch it. And you just got to watch that match every once in a while. Every couple of years, you got to put on 1992 Royal Rumble. See how it's fucking done. Okay? So now you're saying, all right, great. We go to WrestleMania. Let's have Hogan versus the Nate. And they announced that. And then sometimes that gets forgotten about, but they actually did have Hogan Flair on the books for that WrestleMania 8, I believe in the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis, Indiana, and they switched it. They switched the main event, 4 weeks out or 5 weeks out, and so you ended up with this really kind of goofball double main event is how they promoted it. And anytime you have a double main event, it kind of is a tip of the hat that neither main event is that good. And if you really have a triple main event like Starrcade 94, you know that the whole card pretty much sucks. Because if you can't determine a main event, you're not in very good shape. So, blah, blah, blah. So they have their fucking, Flair Savage match. Flair drops the title to Savage. Hogan faces Sid. Ultimate Warrior comes out, etc., etc. And we still didn't get a televised one-on, as far as I know, WWF in 1992, 93, or 91 never had a one-on-one televised match, either Saturday Night's Main Event or anything. I don't think they ever did a televised match. So you have these bootleg videos, these 8mm tapes from the LA Sports Arena, just overexposed light. If you've ever seen these things, they're ridiculous. But point being, we never had our Flair Hogan match. Maybe if there was some, Coliseum video or whatever the fuck match between Hogan and Flair, 91, 92, 93, that'd be great, but I haven't seen it. So now we skip ahead. Blah, blah, blah. We go forward to 1994, and now Hogan, as we all know, we're not going to go through the whole history, but Hogan comes into Flair's backyard, WCW, and apparently Flair was instrumental, at least, they say that now, of getting Hogan over there to WCW. Eric Bischoff, Baywatch, or whatever the fuck, not even Baywatch, Thunder in Paradise, which was Hogan's little Baywatch version. And look, I was around for that time, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to start talking about this too. When you don't see an important match in wrestling history, it taints your outlook of the whole thing. For instance, I did not see Undertaker's debut match in WWF live as it happened. I literally saw it on VHS several months later. Other things like that, and this is where it's coming to. I didn't see WrestleMania 10 as it happened. That was like the one WrestleMania I missed live. So when you have holes in your wrestling memory, your vision, your perspective is warped because you didn't experience it as other people did. I've always liked The Undertaker, but maybe I just didn't have that certain bit of awe or nostalgia for his character as others have, because I didn't watch his debut live as it happened. I was like, oh, Mark is brought in as a gimmick? Oh, okay. and then I had to get caught up to speed. So what I'm getting at with that example is taking us back to Hogan coming into WCW. I saw the ticker tape parade. I saw that Disney crap. And to see Hogan Flair, I didn't see it live. I believe it was Beach Blast 94. And Beach Blast was kind of a pay-per-view that they had for a couple of years. I think 92, 93, and 94. I'm pretty sure it was Beach Blast, not the Great American Bash. Might have been a little bit better if they had been a Great American Bash. But it was Beach Blast or Bash at the Beach, or whatever the fuck. And it was just kind of a, I guess, I don't know if it was Bash at the Beach or Beach Blast that Hogan beat Flair. Maybe it was Bash at the Beach, which was a weird thing. It's like they took the name, the Great American Bash and the Beach Blast, and they merged it to Bash at the Beach, which is just, how many beaches and how many bashes do you need in this world? So now we move forward. We have this big match, and it's just like, I didn't really particularly think it was a good match when I did finally see it. I thought it was very, one-sided for Hogan. There's a lot of theatrics, a lot of Sherry Martel and so forth. And Mr. T, I think, was even there. And it was just, Shaquille O'Neal made an appearance. It was really a situation where it was just too much. It was too much excitement. It was too much activity in one match. This weird dude is kind of doing something, or I think he's kind of urinating on the beach or something. But in any event, it was a situation where seeing Hogan Flair in the ring on pay-per-view, the biggest buy rate in WCW history up until that time. They got more people watching that show than the WWF did for the King of the Ring 94 that Owen Hart won. So in that regard, it was a success. But the reality was, what the downside of it was just a wild clusterfuck of a match. And okay, now Hogan's got the belt. And look, being an NWA fan, having grown up really on both NWA and WWF, I preferred NWA. And to see fucking Hogan come in and beat our guy was not rewarding. But you knew that, okay, he's going to have to do that. But then in October of 94, they had this Clash of the Champions match. Now, that's actually a pretty fun match, too. I mean, they did a good setup with Hogan getting injured by some masked man earlier in the show on the Clash of the Champions. Apparently, wrestling lore says, I guess Flair said, Flair was originally scheduled to win that match, win the title over Hogan, and Hogan refused to take the pin. Hogan refused to be beat by Flair. So Flair had to get this crappy disqualification or count-out victory with all these shenanigans and hoodwinkyville and an old lady at ringside hitting, Hogan in the head with a crutch or whatever the fuck. And basically, Hogan just goes into the next pay-per-view. I believe it was, now we're moving forward to Halloween Havoc 94. I want to say that was in Detroit, right? And now it's Hogan versus Flair. Mr. T's the ref. All these hoodwinks, the guy in the mask, after the match and so forth. And Hogan wins again in the cage. So you got Hogan wins the Bash of the Beach, or Beach Blast, whatever the fuck, in June or July of 94. The Clash of Champions, Flair wins on a crappy count out. Then Flair was doing the whole, I'm the real world champion, I got my own belt routine, which I don't really like that angle. That's like a wrestling staple of doing that. I'm going to have to just be quiet for a moment. There's people coming by. So the point is, there's people around me, so I have to stop talking for a moment. The point is that these matches were just always in Hogan's favor, and you can make a case that Flair won one, but he didn't get the title. And so this whole retirement thing, it's all in Hogan's favor. And so this retirement match, I think it was a double retirement stipulation, Hogan versus Flair, at the cage match in Halloween Havoc. It was actually probably their best match of the three. Sensational Sherry, to give her credit, great lady. She took some good crazy bumps in that match. She looked great that night too. But the point is, they never let Flair get any upswing in this feud. It wasn't really a feud. It was a one-sided demolition, so to speak. And for real NWA fans, we're kind of losing our taste for this whole promotion. Okay, I went to a card, a wrestling show. Greensboro Coliseum, October 94, all right? And guess what happened? Flair versus Sting. Flair's not even the champion. Flair versus Sting, as Hogan's the champion. They had a Vader versus Boss Man match. Neither one of them showed up. That was like the semifinal. Boss Man versus Vader. Neither guy showed up. A young Alex Wright, who none of us saw. This was a great one. Alex Wright and Bobby Eaton are in the first match of the night, I believe. Their match was so bad, they went to a 15-minute draw, and then Alex Wright demanded 5 more minutes. Bobby Eaton agreed to it. The fans booed against 5 more minutes for a match, and the referee waved it off. They didn't do 5 more minutes because the fans did not want to see 5 more minutes of a match of Alex Wright versus Bobby Eaton because they just didn't know how to wrestle each other. They didn't know what to do. And you'd think, yeah, Bobby Eaton's that great, but I mean, he couldn't babysit this Alex Wright through a match. You had Steve Austin versus Duggan on that show. I think we had like Terry Funk and Arn Anderson and Buckhouse Bunk in a 6-man against the Nasty Boys and Dustin Rhodes. This is all by memory, folks. There's no computer or Google machine on right now. So, point being this, the main event was Flair versus Sting, and we just knew that, like, for wrestling fans of that era, hardcore, real NWA fans, you just saw the slow and pleasant burial of Ric Flair, your hero, and it wasn't pleasant or fun. And we didn't really want Hogan. So this whole thing about when Hulk Hogan turned heel, fast forward to 96, once again, I was at a WWF house show in Providence the night that Hogan joined the NWO. So I missed that whole deal too, that exact night. But my point is, I'm kind of making 2 points in one. Like, what happens when you miss something live, you don't quite get it. You never quite get it or appreciate it. Because you miss that dramatic turn of the story. So I've missed a few things in my wrestling memory, I guess. But I've seen more than I've missed. It's more people. I just wish these people were coming around. The gimmick is that I'm at the beach and these folks are trying to use the restrooms, but the restrooms are not open, because it's November. So it's like you got to figure something out. You got to be like a pilgrim and go in the woods or something, I guess. But the point is, blah blah blah. Hogan and Flair. Now that we got this whole Ric Flair, video coming out, this 30 for 30 documentary. Hogan wants to put over Flair. Hogan wants to say how great Flair was. Flair wants to say how great Hogan is. Yeah, we get it. You guys are buddies now, and they've been through a lot. And they're kind of like Pacino and De Niro, or two elder statesmen who can only understand certain things at a level that none of us can understand, which is fine. But my simple point is, they really didn't produce for us, So, let's not have revisionist history and say that the Hogan-Flair rivalry was so wonderful and great. If anything, eventually they did a couple of Clash of Champions matches when Hogan, or at least one, when Hogan turned heel. They had a pretty good match on the Clash of Champions. Probably another screw job. I think Flair won by DQ. Then they had that really weird I Quit match in a cage, maybe in 98 or 99. Then they went back, even in WWF, I think in 2002, they wrestled on SmackDown once. But I guess what I'm saying is, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, as great as they both were, they weren't particularly great together, meaning their rivalry was better, really, in theory than in practice. So I just want to share that with the wrestling fans of today, because I've been very critical of today's product or today's wrestling. But, if fans want to watch, a Kenny Omega versus whoever the fuck, and they say that's a great rivalry, or they want to say Stone Cold and The Rock was a great rivalry, which it was, or whatever. I can't really argue that. I can't wave the flag of Hogan and Flair as a great rivalry. And I really think that the ultimate blame comes on Hogan and Flair. And you can throw Vince in the mix if you want, or Bischoff with the booking, or Kevin Sullivan, whoever booked these matches. There's too many people around here today. But the bottom line is, these two guys, for whatever reason, they just didn't have the very best chemistry as competitors. They were great on their own. They were great with other people, but they were not great together. So that's my point. That's the Mike Messier, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair video. Just informing those that did not know and reminiscing with those that did know that rivalry, Hogan and Flair, you know, don't lie to us. Don't revisionist history. It was like, on a Meltzer waffle scale, you'd say it was like a 3-star rivalry out of 5 stars. If you had, you know, say Flair, Steamboat, I would only give them a 4.5 star. I'm sorry, because the crowd wasn't into that rivalry of Flair and Steamboat. I mean, it sounds kind of cruel because they had the greatest matches. I mean, you might have to give them 5 stars, but if you look at attendance, I'd say you can demerit 0.5 star from the rivalry of Flair Steamboat for just attendance wasn't that good. And Steamboat, although he was the babyface, people didn't like him, to be honest with you. So the matches were 10 stars, but the actual rivalry, and I'd say the Hogan Flair, I mean, 3 stars is kind of generous. So that's Mike Messier giving Hogan and Flair the 3-star rivalry grade that it was. And I hope you have a good weekend. I'll show you a little beach. We spoke about this bash of the beach. Wow, 21 minutes of me talking. Thanks for watching.